It's the mid-1970s, and guitarists around the globe are fixated on the electrifying new sound Eddie Van Halen is bringing to rock music. At a time when guitar solos were already the ultimate showcase of a musician's prowess, Eddie's two-handed tapping technique broke all the rules, redefining the boundaries of what the instrument could do. With this unconventional style, Eddie quickly cemented himself as a guitar legend, bringing a level of technical brilliance that astounded audiences and musicians alike. His playing wasn't just skilled, it was revolutionary, the kind of innovation that would inspire a new generation and forever change the landscape of rock guitar. However, what most fans didn't know was the complicated undercurrent between Eddie and Jimmy Page, the guitarist of another era whose haunting, multi-layered soundscapes had established Led Zeppelin as one of the greatest rock bands in history. Page, revered for his mystical compositions and daring improvisations, stood as a pillar of classic rock, an almost untouchable icon. Yet beneath the surface, Page and Van Halen's relationship was layered with admiration, creative influence, and, as time would tell, a touch of rivalry. Years later, as Page would reveal, their connection was one that defied simple definitions, evolving from mutual respect into something far more intricate. Their journey together was as much about their differences as it was about what united them, each representing a different epoch in rock guitar, but both bound by the shared ambition to push musical boundaries. For Van Halen, Page had been an inspiration from the very beginning. As a young guitarist, Eddie was captivated by Page's ability to conjure raw, powerful sounds with techniques that seemed almost mystical. Page's one-handed riffs and free-flowing style intrigued Eddie, setting him on a journey of discovery that would eventually lead to his pioneering two-handed tapping technique. Yet as Van Halen rose to fame, his confidence grew, and he didn't shy away from critiquing the very musicians who had once inspired him. By the 1980s, Eddie's critique of Page's live performances as sloppy and lacking precision startled fans and seemed to cast a shadow over the mutual respect they once shared. Van Halen's bold commentary positioned him as a prodigy unafraid to challenge the established icons of rock, setting up an unspoken tension between the two giants that lingered even as both continued to redefine their roles in the rock pantheon. Picture this: Eddie Van Halen in his teenage years, wide-eyed and determined, standing in the crowd at a Led Zeppelin concert at the Forum in Los Angeles. Jimmy Page, with his wild mane and infamous dragon suit, was deep into one of his blistering solos, creating sounds that seemed to defy the limits of a single guitar. It was a defining moment for Eddie, who had always pushed boundaries but had never seen such mastery and abandon combined in one performance. Page's technique wasn't just about speed, it was about conjuring atmosphere. The way he could lift his hand mid-riff, using only one to create echoing, intricate notes, captivated the audience. To Eddie, this felt like an invitation to explore, to innovate. He would go home that night inspired, determined to build upon what he had seen, to take it further, to make it wilder. That spark would eventually become his own signature sound. Van Halen's admiration for Page was rooted in these moments, but it was never blind adulation. As Eddie developed his own style, he embraced tapping but with a distinct twist. While Page occasionally tapped with his free hand, Eddie expanded it into something orchestral, blending tapping with melodic phrasing in ways no one had imagined before. Yet as Eddie's career soared, so did his willingness to critique his early influences. He openly respected Page's songwriting and studio wizardry, often calling Led Zeppelin 1 and 2 classics. But when it came to live performances, Eddie's opinions were far less charitable. In a bold 1981 Guitar World interview, he shocked fans by describing Page as sloppy on stage, as if he's got a broken hand and he's 2 years old. For fans of both guitarists, Eddie's critique was like throwing down a gauntlet. Page, the towering figure who had redefined rock with his thundering riffs and supernatural stage presence, was now being challenged by the young prodigy reshaping rock for a new generation. To many, Eddie's comments suggested a changing of the guard, a shift in what fans valued in a guitarist. Page's dark, mysterious artistry clashed with Eddie's explosive precision, creating a subtle but undeniable tension between the two. By the 1980s, both were household names, each representing distinct eras and philosophies of rock guitar. Page's work with Led Zeppelin was celebrated for its depth and mystique, each track layered with tones and effects that felt almost alchemical, transporting listeners into immersive worlds of sound. He was a conductor as much as a guitarist, weaving melodies that felt ancient, complex, and hauntingly dark. His riffs on songs like Kashmir and Stairway to Heaven became timeless standards of rock, shaping the genre's mood as much as its skill. Van Halen, however, was the firecracker, the guitar genius who had exploded onto the scene with high-speed tapping and dizzying solos that transformed rock into something fast, frenetic, and full of life. Where Page reveled in mood and mystery, Eddie defined himself by precision and raw technical power. On stage, Eddie Van Halen was pure volume and excitement. He was relentless, flashing his signature smile as he tore through solos that seemed to defy physics. For him, rock guitar wasn't about restraint or mystique. It was about pushing the very boundaries of what the instrument could do. The contrast between him and Jimmy Page became clear to fans, who often saw Page as a craftsman and Eddie as a virtuoso. Yet, this distinction created an almost unspoken competition. Eddie's pointed critiques of Page's live performances, calling them sloppy and lacking precision, spread quickly, and fans began to take sides. Was Eddie challenging the old guard, or was he genuinely disappointed in Page's less technical, more improvised style on stage? This subtle rivalry grew into a clash of philosophies. Jimmy Page represented rock's old soul, steeped in the mystique of blues and experimental soundscapes. Eddie Van Halen, on the other hand, symbolized the genre's young blood, the speed and energy of a new era. For fans, these two legends embodied an evolving definition of greatness in rock guitar. Yet years went by without Page ever addressing Eddie's stinging critique. His silence seemed telling, as if he had chosen to let the words hang in the air untouched. When Eddie tragically passed away in 2020, it marked the end of an era. Page, whose legacy was in many ways entwined with Eddie's, finally broke his silence. In a deeply reflective statement, he called Eddie the real deal, a guitarist whose dazzling technique had transformed rock forever. For fans, Page's words resonated deeply. His praise not only bridged the gap between them but also acknowledged the evolution of rock guitar itself, something Eddie had taken to new heights with his inventive techniques and signature sound. In honoring Eddie, Page also seemed to reflect on his own legacy. Perhaps he saw in Eddie's innovations the same hunger to push boundaries that had fueled his own journey with Led Zeppelin decades earlier. His tribute carried a bittersweet note, a final recognition that the rock landscape they had shared was forever changed. Where once there had been rivalry, there was now reverence. Page's parting words conveyed a deep admiration, closing the story of their creative tension with respect and acknowledgement. The legacies of Jimmy Page and Eddie Van Halen continue to echo through rock history, each leaving an indelible mark beyond their own styles and into the very fabric of the genre. Page's layered, almost mystical approach offered rock depth and atmosphere, blending blues, folk, and psychedelic textures into compositions that felt like journeys through sound. Tracks like Kashmir and No Quarter weren't just songs, they were immersive experiences crafted with a visionary's ear. His legacy wasn't only technical skill, but the power to transport listeners into other realms. Eddie Van Halen, by contrast, transformed the guitar into a machine of pure energy and speed. His tapping technique and frenetic stage presence turned concerts into athletic feats, each solo a daring display of precision and joy. He pushed the instrument to its limits, infusing Van Halen's music with a dangerous, exhilarating edge. Where Page's legacy is steeped in mysticism and timelessness, Eddie's is explosive and innovative, a force of raw power that redefined modern rock. Together, their contrasting styles proved that greatness in rock could emerge from vastly different approaches. Page's dedication to atmosphere and Eddie's quest for technical mastery pushed the genre forward in new directions. In the end, Page's reverence after Eddie's passing underscored the respect that had always existed beneath their rivalry, a connection where competition gave way to admiration. Their contributions remain intertwined, inspiring generations of guitarists and reminding fans that in rock, as in life, there is no single path to greatness. Eddie Van Halen transformed the electric guitar into a machine of pure energy and speed, pioneering techniques that gave rock its modern, electrifying edge. His innovative tapping style and frenetic on-stage presence turned rock concerts into athletic feats, each solo a daring display of precision and intensity. He constantly challenged the limits of what a guitarist could achieve, infusing Van Halen's music with an unrestrained joy that made rock feel both dangerous and exhilarating. Where Jimmy Page's legacy is steeped in the mystical and the timeless, Van Halen's remains dynamic and explosive, a legacy of raw power and innovation. Their contrasting styles revealed the diverse possibilities within rock, proving that greatness could emerge from vastly different approaches. Page's dedication to the subtleties of sound and Van Halen's quest for technical mastery each pushed the other, and the entire genre, in bold new directions. Page's reverence for Eddie after his passing only underscored the deep respect that existed between them, a rare connection where rivalry ultimately gave way to admiration. Their contributions remain intertwined, each pushing boundaries that continue to inspire generations of guitarists. Together, they proved that in rock, as in life, there is no single path to greatness.